The artificial intelligence arms race is officially on, with all the big tech names vying for AI dominance. Here with me now with thoughts on that, as well as how big tech companies should manage risk heading into the 2024 election cycle, is Mark Penn. He is chairman and CEO of Stagwell. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mark.
Thank you.
So, as former chief strategy officer at Microsoft, what are your thoughts on the current AI arms race?
Well, I think it's really, for the first time in maybe decades, a year of competition with the tech companies because there's no clear leader. I think Microsoft has an edge in AI, but Google has a tremendous data set that's been working on it for a long time. So I really think that for the first time, it's not like, oh, okay, search is with Google and social is with Facebook. AI is going to be everywhere, and all the companies are going to be vying. Use my AI. And whether or not they're going to succeed or not, that's something we're going to see in the next year or so.
Right. And so especially the big tech companies, a lot of them have really deep pockets. So they're willing to spend money on R&D and innovation. So what do you think, other than just having that war chest, so to speak, is going to make the difference between winners and losers on the AI front?
Well, when you think of AI, think of three different processes that have to go well. First, you need the chips, all right? The tech companies don't make the chips. The chip-making companies do that. Second, you need cloud computing. That means the cost of cloud computing and who is dominant in cloud computing will be really important. And third, you need applications. So they're all saying, let's get applications. In fact, at Stagwell, we're building applications, and we did a partnership recently with Google to market those applications about marketing. But the applications are the key because, after all, the question is, what is the entry point to AI? The applications, the cloud, and the chips. That's why there's three segments of the industry, I think, that are all off the charts trying to get their share of this AI pie.
Right, and it seems like all of these companies, they can't innovate in a vacuum. They have to develop these partnerships and relationships. So with your experience, what do you think is the key to making that work?
Well, you really got to understand the processes, because if you look at AI, AI is going to have applications in virtually every industry. Big applications in healthcare and really understanding, disease and how it's transmitted and how it can be solved. Big applications in automobile manufacturing and driving, as we've seen. Big applications in marketing and kind of word development and journalism and interviews like this. One day it will be my bot interviewing your bot. But because of all those applications, to really do them well, you have to know something about those things. And tech companies know a lot about engineering. They don't know as much about the vertical industries. And that's where I think startups and also getting people knowledgeable about those industries is going to be the key to applications that catch on.
Yeah, with those bot communications, hopefully the humans can still stay in control. But speaking of, do you see any sort of hurdles or regulatory risk for these big tech companies that could hinder AI developments?
Well, there are a lot of hurdles when you apply AI. First, it doesn't always work. It seems to work. It gives you an answer. There's going to be certainly a lot of issues of copyright. I think the question is, whose information are they using, and whose information are they regurgitating, and what kind of royalties do they have to pay, if any? Tech companies are used to not paying any royalties. And so I think that's going to be a big regulatory fight when it comes to AI. But I think there's obviously a lot of hazards too, because AI can not only be wrong, but it can be racist. It could be hateful. It can create situations. It can even drive people to suicide or to movements. So there's a lot of power in AI, and that power has to be controlled. And I think people have warned about it. So yes, it's an area of incredible promise, but there are going to be hazards, dangers, and incredible ethical concerns.
Right. So let's switch gears a little bit and now talk about the digital advertising landscape and the AI influence there. Of course, you have the big players, Meta's Facebook, Alphabet's Google. What are you seeing on that front?
Well, you're seeing TikTok really come on as a strong competitor. I think if you log on to TikTok, what you see today is something you didn't see 6 months ago: ads, and lots of them. and a store and the ability to quickly purchase. So when you look at who's really shaking up social media, I think you see Facebook, coming back from the troubles that it had a few years ago. You see, I think, the various photo-based sites. I think people are really interested in photos and videos, more so almost than words. I think you see almost in business, LinkedIn, I think, continuing to do, quite strongly. And I think, obviously, X is making a comeback here, after it's really been kind of reformulated and is the process of really becoming an everything app. So if you look at that, I think you're going to see X make some incredible progress, and really TikTok is really the mover and shaker right now.
Right. And so I think that's a great segue to a discussion of social media and the 2024 election cycle. It seems like over the past decade, the landscape has really changed in terms of the conversations that are happening on social media, the influence that it has. So how do you think big tech companies need to navigate this landscape with, a lot of hot headlines that have come out of how tech companies are interfacing with government agencies and misinformation and the potential for that? There's a lot going on there. So what do tech companies need to be thinking about?
Well, I think the first thing is tech companies should stay away from the government. I think that a lot of voters are concerned that the tech companies became an arm of the government, and there's nothing more powerful than the government and a tech company and 100 million users. So in many ways, I think the tech companies have to say no to government involvement and really, I think, be wary of any government influence, because that really creates a lot of suspicion of users. And I think in the election, remember, our elections are based more or less on free speech. So it is a good thing that elections are held now, not just on TV ads but on social media as well. I think we need to keep the debate civil, but we need to keep the debate active, and we need to keep the debate open-ended, across the full spectrum and diversity of opinion.
Mm-hmm. And so what about the level of transparency needed? You talked about damaged trust, essentially, with consumers. What do you think about that aspect of things?
Well, I think that means eliminating bots. It means cracking down on bots and users that are really foreign governments in disguise. But I do think when it comes to core American political speech, I think the tech companies have got to get out of the business of trying to over-regulate it or do regulation that seems to be tilted towards one side or another. They need to let the election happen, they need to let people say what they're going to say, and they need to let the voters vote. And I think the more they try to interfere with that process, the more dangerous it becomes for them. I think that when you look at the risk to their reputation, people think that risk is in them not controlling speech, but I think the greater risk is in them over-controlling speech and getting too enthusiastic about doing that, especially people in their 20s and 30s who are in what I'll call the tech bureaucracy.
Right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your insights today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.